most people's first principles are to be accepted, to not be rejected by other people. And that shows so evidently when you ask people their greatest fear. How would you respond to what you think most people's greatest fears are, Danny?
The fear of death or the fear of public speaking are the first things that come to mind.
Yeah, death is not the one for most people. It's public speaking. And by the way, there's far worse things than dying. There are far worse things than public speaking. So let's square up with the public speaking one. The reason that public speaking is 1 or 2 on the list, let's say, is because it is such a dangerous feeling to present yourself in a vulnerable way on a 3-foot riser on a stage in front of whomever, because if they reject you, hundreds of thousands of years ago, rejection from the tribe was a sure death sentence. It's too complicated once you're out of the fray to hunt, to forage, to gather, to build a tent, or a place to be safe, to ward off, hostile people or animals. Like it was a death sentence. So we are deeply attuned to the potential opinion of another person, and we contort and we conform and we do whatever we can to be liked. We manage our impression to be accepted rather than know the first principles and flat out be about it, even at the cost of getting kicked out of the tribe. Because the ancient brain has not been properly managed by the psychology of the mind. And if we don't invest in one's psychology, the brain will win. It's been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years. Your great ancestry figured out the Dark Ages. They figured out how to be safe enough, belonging and safety. They figured out how to manage the wildebeest and the saber-tooths and it's in your DNA for survival, Danny. And unless you work with your mind and go into the world in the invisible, your brain's going to win. And that brain is saying, stay safe, be okay. Make sure you don't get kicked out now. Why go on stage and risk it all? Like, okay, maybe you're going to get more money. Okay, so there's a risk in here, as opposed to no, get on stage, it's an opportunity. When you really train yourself and you really work from the inside out, the first rule of mastery is the name of the book. And the first rule is to work from the inside out, to invest in your own psychology. You start to see opportunities as opposed to everything being a threat. And that's the fundamental difference, opportunity versus threat. And until you work with your own psychology, you're tuned to most things being a threat versus an opportunity. And again, that's trainable.
You've said before that you were late to figure out who you were. You cared so much about what other people thought of you, and you were consumed by the perspectives of everyone else. And I assume that is what led to your first book coming out November 7th, The First Rule of Mastery, Stop Worrying About What Other People Think of You. It is the biggest issue in today's modern day and age. I talk to so many people who are worried what other people are going to think. I mean, I heard someone tell me not too long ago that they were scared to write what they truly felt in their own journal because what if someone read it? And what if, a long time from now, people brought that up? And how sad of a state is it that sometimes we can't even be honest with ourselves and our own journal because we're scared of what other people are going to think when they're not even reading it? It's madness.
But that speaks to how strong of a dictum the brain is operating from. I do talk about this research in the book that alarmingly so, a higher percentage than you ever imagine of people that go actually make the step and go to do therapy, that they're lying to their therapist too.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't speak to the craziness of psychology. It speaks to the power of the dictum of the brain to be accepted. And until we square up with that, we'll never know what you're capable of. We will never know what the potential could be of you. And so I think the way I think about the book is that, first of all, I wrote an article for HBR, Harvard Business Review, and 12 months later they called and they said, hey, you know that article that we did? I said, yeah. They said it was the #1 downloaded article over the last 12 months.
Wow.
Like you hit a nerve. And I was like, this thing about not worrying about other people, yeah. And so I said, and they said, can we write a book together? And I said, or can we be the publisher of your book? And I said, man, I'm wrestling alligators. Like, I'm in this steep growth arc in this practice of taking the best of sports psychology and crosswalking that into best practices for businesses. And so I said, I can't do it right now. And they said, okay, we'll come back. Another 12 months go by. So it's now 24 months. They said, hey, we re-released that article. It was the number one downloaded article again. Let's come on now. And I said, let's go. I'm a great time. And so it hit a nerve. I think you're right that it's in there. I was embarrassed about it for so long. And the athletes I spoke with, like, they feel it. The coaches I work with, the leaders of multinational corporations and entrepreneurs, they feel it. So of course artists feel it. Like, so here's the way I think about it is that David Foster Wallace, great poet and writer, and he says, he creates the story about two young fish swimming, and there's a elder fish swimming in the other way. And that elder fish nods and says, morning, boys. How's the water? And the two young fish swim on for a little bit. They don't say anything. And eventually one of them looks over to the other and says, what the hell is water? So the older fish's question, how is the water? It was meant to make the young fish think about their own reality and the things that are so ingrained in their experience that they fail to notice them. It's the FOPO, fear of people's opinion, is the water that we swim in. It's the air that we breathe. It's like The Sixth Sense, the movie. Once you recognize it, like, ghosts are everywhere. It's that type of thing. Like, FOPO is everywhere. And my job is to help people become better. And this is the thing that I found that keeps them stuck, is this pervasive fear of what are they going to think of me? And I think some of the most important realities for life are hidden in plain sight, and this is one of them. And FOPO is the water we swim in. It is, like I said, the air we breathe. And so I also love David Foster Wallace's insight, because the two fish that were swimming, they didn't immediately look at each other because they didn't want to look stupid. They wanted to kind of pretend like, oh yeah, the water's good. So that's what we do when someone tells a joke and we don't get it. We laugh. Ha ha ha. That's FOPO. FOPO is like when you're at a public place and you grab your phone so you appear busy or in demand or important. That's FOPO. FOPO is staying late at work because your boss is still around. It's laughing at a joke that you don't find funny. It's pretending that you know a song or a movie that people are talking about, so you're not the oddball out. It's holding a cocktail at a party when you don't want to drink because you don't want to be the weirdo. It's avoiding a reunion or a social event because, you think that they think you should have achieved more in your life. Like, it's everywhere. And it's hiding your age. If you know that the company values youth, like, it's everywhere.
Quick story.
Exhausting.
Yeah. Quick story on that. I mean, I order burgers with just the burger and the bun, no lettuce, tomato, onion, plain. And I give the order to my waitress one day, that's my order. And she said, you know what? I always wanted to order that way too, but I'm scared. And I'm like, it's just the way I prefer food. I mean, yeah, it's a boring meal. It's easy to make fun of, whatever, but that's the truth of what I want. And
so where does FOPO show up for you? Where does this little slippery filter for how you say, dress, think, do, like, how does it show up for you?
I would say it probably has to do with my exercise habits.
Yeah.
I don't know if I fear other people's opinions. I know, like, lifting weights and running are the two modalities that I'm really interested in right now, and I've been lifting since, in the last 5 years. But I think about that a lot. Is like, how much of those activities are because of other people? And if it was a different time and a different place, I'd be doing something else. And I don't know if that's a fear or just like being part of the culture. It could be the water in which I can't even see. So what do you think about that?
I think it's in there. Like, there's part of you somewhere that's like, when you put on a shirt and you're like, oh, my guns look good in this one. Oh, my stomach looks a little too big in this one. Or, oh, like, Does this make me look short? Like, I bet that's in there. And those are all like ways to manage your impression that you're presenting to other people. And you could be free. My next book will be to interview you, to understand like how have you done it? And essentially that's what we did in the book is we use good science to say there's all these slippery little on-ramps to FOPO and there's ways to get off of it. Even the greats like Beethoven had it. The greatest musician, composer of all time, potentially. You know, do you know anyone that doesn't know bum, 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 Symphony No. 5?
It's part of our culture.
It's part of it. Do you know that he created Symphony No. 5 under this psychology that he went away. He left his communities. He went and kind of hid out for a couple years because he was so terrified that people were going to think less of him because he was losing his hearing. Of all people, how could somebody as perfect as me lose their hearing? And so this is deconstructed from his writings. And he went away. And it's said that great work of art, Symphony No. 5 from Beethoven, happened because he couldn't hear the music. And he was so attuned to like what was happening outside of him and all the opinions of other people that he had to go away, and he couldn't quite hear the music like outside. So he had to listen to the music inside, which is like a new skill for him. That bum, 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 bum comes from him pounding his hand on his fist on the piano. Why can't I hear this?
Wow.
But it was actually, and then he heard it as the story goes, and he's like, oh, that's interesting. Bum, 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 bum. So like when you really embrace what's up for you and you work from the music from within and not create for the approval of others, you might just create the greatest masterpiece ever. You might create something that changes your family arc, like your legacy of your family of a different way. My parents passed on genetic genes, some amazing, some suspect. And I'm just trying to make different mistakes and maybe upgrade the genetic coding and the environmental influences that I'm having for my son. So I don't know. I just love the idea that we can do better. And I think this is it's a little bit of the water that we swim in.
If you enjoyed this clip, watch the full episode right over here. And don't forget to subscribe.